Picture this, August for 79 BC. Boeotia, Greece. You are a Spartan hoplite standing in the second rank of the phalanx. Bronze helmet heavy on your skull. The world reduced to what you can see through the narrow islets. Your shield presses against the back of the man in front of you. You can smell him. Sweat, olive oil, the metallic tang of fear masked by discipline. The morning sun bakes you inside your armor like meat in an oven. The dust is everywhere. It coats your throat. It stings your eyes. Through the haze, you see them, thousands upon thousands of Persian infantry, their wicker shields painted with eyes that seem to watch you, their spears bristling like a forest of death. Behind them, cavalry wheel in charge, kicking up more dust, more chaos, more impossible odds. Your right arm aches. You've been holding your 8-foot spear in the same position for what feels like hours. The leather grip is slick with sweat. In front of the Persian lines, you can just make out a figure on horseback, Mardonius, second only to the god king Xerxes himself, the man who has burned your farms, enslaved your people, and desecrated the body of your king. Somewhere in the press of bodies, someone starts the paean, the war hymn, low at first, then louder. The rhythm matches your heartbeat. You remember why you're here. You remember Thermopylae. You remember what they did to Leonidas. You remember the oath sworn in blood by every free Greek. No quarter, no mercy, not until Persia drowns in its own blood. This is Plataea, the day 100,000 Persians learned that vengeance is a debt the Spartans always collect, before diving into the forgotten stories of survival and suffering. If you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. To understand the magnitude of what happened at Plataea, we must first strip away the romantic myths. Hollywood sold you the story of 300 Spartans holding the pass at Thermopylae, glorious, defiant, immortal in their sacrifice. That part is true. But what the movies don't tell you is what came after. What happens when an entire nation, an entire coalition of free men, decides that a crime against their warriors demands not just remembrance, but total, calculated annihilation. 1 year earlier, in August 480 BC, King Leonidas I of Sparta and his 300 bodyguards, along with roughly 700 Thespians and 400 Thebans, made their last stand at the Hot Gates. They bought time. They inflicted horrific casualties. They forced the mightiest empire on earth to bleed for every inch of Greek soil. And when the final spear was broken, when the last Spartan fell, the Persians found Leonidas among the dead. What happened next violated every rule of ancient warfare. Xerxes, the self-proclaimed king of kings, was not satisfied with victory. According to the Greek historian Herodotus, in a rage unprecedented even by Persian standards, Xerxes ordered Leonidas' body beheaded. Then he commanded the headless corpse crucified, the severed head mounted on a stake as a warning. For the Persians, who traditionally honored fallen enemies as valiant warriors, this was an aberration. For the Spartans, it was an unforgivable sacrilege. For all of Greece, it became the spark that transformed defensive war into a crusade of vengeance. Here is a mathematical reality the Persians failed to grasp. Sparta did not simply have 300 warriors. The 300 at Thermopylae were the king's personal guard, the Hippias, chosen from the warrior elite. Back home, Sparta could field approximately 8,000 to 10,000 full Spartiate hoplites at peak strength, each one trained from age 7 in the Avenged, the most brutal military conditioning system ever devised. Add to this their perioikoi, free non-citizens who fought alongside Spartans, and you had a core force of hardened killers who viewed warfare not as politics, but as religion. And Sparta was not alone. Athens, despite its ravaged lands and burned Acropolis, could still muster 8,000 hoplites. Corinth, Megara, Tegea, Plataea itself, city after city sent their warriors. By the summer of 479 BC, the Hellenic League had assembled approximately 40,000 hoplite infantry, double that number in light troops, and they had one purpose: find the Persian army and erase it from existence. The Persian force they faced was staggering. After Xerxes retreated to Asia following his naval defeat at Salamis, he left behind his finest general, Mardonius, with an army estimated by ancient sources at anywhere from 100,000 to 300,000 men. Modern historians consider 100,000 to 150,000 more realistic, but even a conservative estimate meant the Persians outnumbered the Greeks 2 to 1, perhaps 3 to 1. They had cavalry, thousands of mounted archers and lancers. They had infinite resources from the world's richest empire. They had conquered Egypt, Babylon, and half the known world. By all calculated metrics, what happened at Plataea should have been impossible. The march north in the summer of 479 BC was not just military strategy. It was ritual. It was penance. Every Spartan who tied on his armor did so with the knowledge that Leonidas' dishonored body still hung somewhere in Persian territory, or had it been buried. The uncertainty gnawed at them. Greek warriors believed that without proper burial rites, the soul wandered, restless and tortured, unable to cross the river Styx. Before the army assembled, before the banners were raised and the oaths sworn, there was a moment in Sparta that changed everything. Pausanias, nephew of the fallen Leonidas, was appointed regent and commander of the Greek coalition forces. He was young, perhaps in his early 30s. He carried the weight of his uncle's sacrifice like chains. In the assembly of Spartan equals, Pausanias stood and spoke words recorded in fragments by later historians. They dishonored our king. They defiled the body of man who died, buying them time to flee. Xerxes believes he can break us with terror. He is wrong. We will teach Persia the cost of such hubris. Every city that stood with us at Thermopylae will march. Every man who can lift a spear will fight. We will find Mardonius, and we will show the world what happens when you wake the wolf. The vote was unanimous. This wasn't about defending territory anymore. This was about honor. This was about demonstrating to every present and future enemy that attacking Sparta came a price that could never be repaid, only avenged in blood. In Athens, the decision was equally visceral. The Persians had burned the Acropolis. They had desecrated temples. They had enslaved Greek citizens and sold them in eastern slave markets. Themistocles, the architect of the naval victory at Salamis, understood that this war would not end with defensive victories. It would end only when the Persian army was destroyed so completely that Xerxes would never dare return. The coalition assembled in the Isthmus of Corinth, tens of thousands of men streaming in from across Greece, Spartans in their crimson cloaks, Athenians with owl-emblazoned shields, Tegeans, Corinthians, men from Megara, from Elis, from Orchomenus. It was the largest Greek army ever assembled on Greek soil, and at its head, Pausanias, who carried not just the command of an army, but the ghost of Thermopylae itself. This is where everything changed. This was no longer defense. This was retribution. The Persian general Mardonius was no fool. He had watched the Greeks fight at Thermopylae. He had seen them refuse impossible odds. But he also believed, as many Persians did, that Greek unity was fragile, that gold and diplomacy could fracture alliances faster than swords. He tried. In the spring of 479 BC, Mardonius sent emissaries to Athens with an offer: break your alliance with Sparta, accept Persian overlordship, and Athens would be rewarded with autonomy, wealth, and power. The Athenians brought the Persian envoys before the assembly. The vote was swift and brutal. The emissaries were executed on the spot. Some sources say they were thrown into a pit. The message was clear. There would be no negotiation, no surrender, only war. Mardonius retreated north into Boeotia, central Greece, north of Attica, and chose his ground with the precision of a master tactician. Near the city of Plataea, he found a plain crossed by the Esopus River. The ground was flat, perfect for cavalry. He built a fortified camp of timber palisades, large enough to hold his entire army. The camp sat on the north bank of the river, protected by walls and positioned to allow his cavalry to dominate the field. He had supply lines stretching back to Thebes, a Persian ally, ensuring food and reinforcements. His plan was elegant. Lure the Greeks on the plain, harass them with cavalry, cut their supply lines, and then crush them in a decisive engagement where Persian numbers and mobility would overwhelm the rigid Greek phalanx. When the Greek army arrived in late June or early July, they did not take the bait. Pausanias positioned his forces on the foothills of Mount Cithaeron, south of the Asopus River. The high ground protected their flanks. The terrain was rough, unsuitable for cavalry charges. From there, the two armies stared at each other across the river valley. The waiting began. Imagine this. 40,000 Greek hoplites camped on hillsides, watching a Persian army 3 times their size fortify positions less than 2 miles away. Every morning, you wake to the sound of thousands of men sharpening spears, boiling leather, checking armor straps. The air smells like wood smoke, unwashed bodies, and fear buried under layers of discipline. At night, watchfires flicker across the plain like fallen stars. You can hear the Persians, alien voices, drums, the whinny of 10,000 horses. For 11 days, the standoff continued. The Greeks refused to move into the open. Mardonius refused to attack uphill into prepared positions. Both commanders understood. The first side to make a mistake would lose everything. If this story of survival against impossible odds resonates with you, please give this video a like. It truly helps these stories reach more people. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into history's turning points. Let's zoom in. You are not Pausanias, not a general with maps and strategies. You are a 25-year-old hoplite from Tegea. You've been standing in the sun for 11 days. Your knees ache. Your feet are blistered. The barley porridge you ate this morning sits heavy in your gut. You haven't bathed in 2 weeks. The man next to you, Cleomenes, keeps whispering prayers at Ares, the god of war, so quietly you can barely hear. He's terrified, so are you, but you don't say it. Fear is private. Courage is collective. You think about your farm, the olive grove you left behind, your wife. You wonder if you'll ever see them again. Then you remember the stories the Athenians told around the campfires, how the Persians crucified Leonidas, how they enslaved entire villages, how they burned temples and laughed. The rage returns. It always does. It's easier than the fear. Down in the valley, you can see Persian cavalry moving, small units probing the Greek lines, looking for weakness. Yesterday, they charged the Megarians. Arrows fell like hail. 17 Megarians died, pierced through gaps in their armor. The cavalry retreated before the Greeks could respond. It's psychological warfare. Mardonius is bleeding you slowly, testing you, looking for the moment you break formation. But you don't, because you are Greek, because you are free, and because every man here knows what failure means. Slavery, annihilation, the end of everything you've ever known. For Pausanias, the pressure was suffocating. He commanded not just an army, but a coalition. Spartans obeyed because obedience was religion. But Athenians questioned. Corinthians argued. Tegeans wanted glory. Every day, officers approached him with complaints. The cavalry raids were unsustainable. Water sources were contaminated. Supplies were running low. The men were restless. How long could he hold this line without battle? Mardonius, camped in luxury across the river, had his own frustrations. His cavalry reported that the Greeks would not move. His generals urged a decisive strike, but attacking uphill against a phalanx was suicide. Days turned into a week into 11 days. And then Mardonius played his masterstroke. He sent his cavalry not to attack the Greeks, but to destroy their supply lines. On the 10th day of the standoff, Persian cavalry units bypassed the Greek front lines and struck deep into their rear. They ambushed a supply convoy coming from Athens, 490 wagons loaded with grain, wine, and salted fish. The convoy was escorted by only light troops. The cavalry massacre was swift. They killed the guards, burned the wagons, and slaughtered the oxen. Smoke rose into the sky, visible from the Greek camp. Then they poisoned the wells. The Greeks had been drawing water from several springs near their camp. The most important was the Gargaphia spring. Persian riders, in coordinated night raids, dumped animal carcasses and waste into the water sources. By morning, the water was undrinkable. Men who drank from the fouled springs became violently ill, vomiting dysentery. the worst kind of suffering in an army without modern medicine. Pausanias faced a strategic catastrophe. Without water, without food, the army would collapse within days. He had two choices: retreat back to the isthmus and admit defeat, or move to a new position close to Plataea where fresh water could be secured. Neither option was safe. Moving an army at night, in enemy territory, with Persian cavalry hunting for any sign of weakness, it was a recipe for disaster. But staying meant death by thirst. He chose to move. The plan was surgical. Under cover darkness, the Greek army would reposition south and west, closer to the city of Plataea, where fresh springs and better supply routes could be established. The Athenians would move first, taking the left flank. The Spartans would hold the right. The center, composed of smaller city-state contingents, would follow. But war does not care about plans. On the night of the maneuver, chaos erupted. Units lost their way in the darkness. Soldiers stumbled over rocks, collided with each other, shouted contradictory orders. The Spartan officer Amynpharidas, commanding a battalion on the right wing, refused to move. He considered retreat dishonorable. His men stayed put, creating a dangerous gap in the formation. Pausanias, riding between units, was forced to halt the Spartans until Amynpharidas could be convinced or abandoned. By the time dawn broke on August 27th, for 79 BC, the Greek army was strung out across 3 miles of open ground, disorganized, vulnerable, and caught in the worst possible position. The Athenians were on the far left, near the river, the Spartans in their Aegean. Allies were on the right, isolated and exposed. A small mixed force huddled near the city walls of Plataea. Mardonius, watching from across the river, saw his moment. He had waited 11 days for this. Now the Greeks were broken, scattered, and ripe for slaughter. He ordered the attack. The Persian cavalry struck first. Thousands of mounted archers and lancers surged across the Aesopus River, hooves thundering, dust rising like a storm. They targeted the Spartans on the right wing. Arrows fell in black clouds. The sound was like rain on a tin roof. Thousands of shafts striking bronze, wood, flesh. Men screamed. Horses screamed. The world became noise and blood. The Spartans formed testudo. Overlapping shields raised in a protective shell. Arrows shattered against bronze. Some found gaps. Men fell, but the phalanx held. This was what they trained for. This was what the Avenged had built. Men who could stand in the storm and not break. Pausanias needed to buy time for the scattered Greek forces to reform. He sent runners to the Athenians. Hold your position. Do not advance. Wait for the signal. But the Athenians were under their own assault. Persian infantry, supported by Theban allies, were pressing their lines. The battle fragmented into a dozen smaller engagements, each desperate, each brutal. And then Mardonius himself arrived. The Persian general led his elite immortals. 10,000 of the best warriors in the empire, their armor glittering, their discipline terrifying. They advanced on foot toward the Spartan line. Shields locked, spears forward, a mirror image of the phalanx itself. Behind them came waves of Persian infantry, tribal levies from across the empire, thousands deep. This was the moment, the collision. The two formations slammed into each other with the force of collapsing buildings. Spears snapped, shields splintered. Men in the front ranks died instantly, crushed, impaled, trampled. The Spartans pushed. The Persians pushed back. The phalanx, that ultimate expression of collective violence, became a grinding machine of death. Step, stab, push, repeat. The key difference was armor. Greek hoplites wore bronze plate, helmets, breastplates, greaves. Persian infantry had wicker shields and quilted linen. At close range, Greek spears punched through Persian defenses like needles through cloth. But the Persians had numbers. For every one that fell, 2 more stepped forward. For minutes that felt like hours, the line swayed. The Spartans, drilled to mechanical perfection, fought as a single organism. "Forward!" shouted the officers. The phalanx surged 3 steps. "Hold!" The line locked. Men in the rear ranks pressed shields against the backs of those in front, adding weight, momentum, turning human bodies into battering rams. The Persians began to crack. And then, in the midst of chaos, a single moment changed everything. A Spartan warrior, accounts don't agree on his name, saw Mardonius through the press of bodies. The Persian general was mounted, directing his troops, visible by his white horse and golden armor. The Spartan picked up a stone, not a weapon of honor, but a necessity, and hurled it with desperate strength. The rock struck Mardonius square in the skull. He fell from his horse, dead before he hit the ground. The effect was instantaneous. The immortals saw their commander fall. Panic rippled through the Persian ranks like a shockwave. Without Mardonius, without orders, without the unifying presence of leadership, the Persian line disintegrated. Men turned. Men ran. The disciplined advance became a stampede. The Spartans pressed the advantage. They surged forward, slaughtering the retreating Persians with the methodical efficiency of butchers. No mercy, no quarter. This was not battle. This was payment. If you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who values the deep, often overlooked stories that define who we are. Please make sure you're subscribed and have the bell notification turned on. I have a lot more forgotten history to uncover with you. What followed was one of the most brutal massacres in ancient warfare. The Persian army, now leaderless and fragmented, fled north toward their fortified camp. But the Greeks were faster. Rage is a powerful fuel. For every Persian who reached the camp, 3 were cut down in the open field. The Tegeans, fighting alongside the Spartans, pursued with savage joy. The Athenians, breaking to their own Persian opposition, swept westward to join the slaughter. The smaller Greek contingents, rallying from their initial disorder, poured into the fray. By midday, tens of thousands of Persians were trapped against their own fortifications, pressed between Greek spears and wooden walls. The Greeks stormed the camp. The Persians had built palisades of defense, but those defenses now became prisons. Greek hoplites smashed through the gates, scaled the walls, and poured into the camp like a flood of bronze and fury. The fighting inside was intimate and horrific. Spears are too long for close quarters. Swords came out, short Xiphos blades, designed for stabbing, not slashing. Greeks waded through tents, through screaming men, through blood that turned the dust into red mud. According to Herodotus, who wrote the most detailed account, only 3,000 Persians escaped the camp alive. The rest, estimates range from 50,000 to 100,000, were killed. Not captured, killed. Greek soldiers, remembering Thermopylae, remembering burned temples and enslaved families, showed no mercy. Prisoners were rare. Surrender was not accepted. This was extermination. One recorded detail haunts the historical record. The Greeks found Persian noblemen hiding in the camp, begging for mercy in broken Greek. They were dragged out and executed on the spot. Pausanias himself ordered the body of Mardonius, recovered from the battlefield, to be displayed as Leonidas had been displayed, mutilated and dishonored, a mirror of Persian cruelty. The battle lasted less than 6 hours from first contact to the fall of the camp. The aftermath lasted all day. Greek soldiers moved through the ruins, finishing the wounded, looting the dead, and burning everything. The smoke from the Persian camp rose so high it could be seen from Athens 60 miles away. When silence finally fell over Plataea, the Greeks counted their dead. According to most reliable sources, they lost approximately 1,300 to 2,000 men. The Spartans, who bore the brunt of the Persian assault, lost 91 hoplites. The Athenians lost 52. Tegea lost 16. Every name was recorded. Every body was honored with burial rites. The Persians lost an army. Conservative modern estimates placed their casualties at 30,000 to 50,000 killed in battle and the subsequent massacre. Ancient sources claimed over 100,000. Whatever the true number, the result was undeniable. The Persian force left in Greece was annihilated, but the Greeks did not stop there. The plunder from the Persian camp was staggering. Gold, silver, silk, exotic weapons from across the empire. Pausanias ordered 1/10 of the treasure to be dedicated to the gods. The rest was divided among the city-states. But first, he did something extraordinary. He ordered the Persian royal tent set up, Mardonius's personal quarters, filled with golden cups, silk cushions, and exotic foods. He commanded the Persian slaves to prepare a feast, as they would have for their master. Then he had the Greek soldiers serve barley porridge in wooden bowls beside it. He called the Greek commanders to witness both. "Behold," Pausanias reportedly said, "the folly of the Persians. They had all of this, and yet they came to steal our poverty." The lesson was clear. Persia had underestimated what it could not quantify: the will of free men who fight for something greater than gold. The Spartans had avenged Leonidas. The Greeks had avenged Thermopylae, and they had done it not through luck, not through divine intervention, but through discipline, sacrifice, and the cold application of violence. This wasn't luck. It was mathematics. The phalanx, properly employed, was a force multiplier. 8 ranks deep, shields locked, every man pushing forward with the combined weight of those behind him. It generated physical pressure that lighter-armed infantry could not withstand. Add Spartan training, Greek armor superiority, and the desperation of men fighting for their homes, and the outcome became inevitable. The Persian cavalry, so effective in harassment, was useless in close combat. The Persian infantry, brave and numerous, lacked the cohesion and protection of the phalanx. And once Mardonius fell, the entire command structure collapsed. Ancient armies were brittle. Leadership was everything. Without it, even the largest force became a mob. The lesson of Plataea is not about courage. It is about preparation meeting opportunity. It is about what happens when a disciplined force exploits the chaos of an overextended enemy. It is about vengeance, yes, but vengeance executed with precision. The Battle of Plataea did not end the Greco-Persian Wars. Skirmishes, raids, and naval engagements continued for decades. But Plataea ended something far more important. It ended the Persian threat to mainland Greece. Never again would a Persian king stand at the gates of Athens. Never again would the empire attempt a full-scale invasion of the Greek peninsula. The consequences rippled across centuries. Had the Persians won at Plataea, the history of Western civilization would be unrecognizable. There would be no golden age of Athens, no Parthenon, no Socrates, no Plato, no Aristotle. Democracy, still in its infancy, would have been strangled in the cradle, replaced by the absolute monarchy of the Persian model. Greek culture, the foundation of Roman culture, and through Rome, the foundation of European civilization, would have been absorbed and erased. This is not hyperbole. This is causality. The ideas that define the modern West: representative government, philosophical inquiry, the supremacy of law over kings, were incubated in the Greek world that survived because of Plataea. The Spartans themselves grew from the victory. Pausanias, the young commander who led them to vengeance, would later fall from grace, accused of treason, of conspiring with Persia, of arrogance. He would die starved in a temple where he sought sanctuary, his legacy forever complicated. But at Plataea, he was something else. The man who fulfilled the oath of Thermopylae. For the Athenians, Plataea solidified their role as co-leaders of Greece. Their fleet had won at Salamis. Their hoplites had fought at Plataea. Within decades, they would build an empire of their own, the Delian League, and Athens would shine as a cultural and political heart of the Greek world until the Peloponnesian War tore it apart. For Persia, Plataea was humiliation. The empire remained vast, wealthy, and powerful, but it learned a painful truth. Some peoples cannot be conquered. Some borders are written in blood and will. Xerxes would never return to Greece. He spent the rest of his reign fighting rebellions and assassination plots, dying in 465 BC. Stabbed to death by his own courtiers. Imagine the alternate timeline. Imagine if Mardonius had won. Greek city-states, enslaved or destroyed, their culture ground into dust. The Persian Empire, unchallenged, spreading further into Europe. No Roman Republic inheriting Greek philosophy. No Renaissance rediscovering classical texts. The entire trajectory of human history pivots on that single day near a small town in Boeotia. If the 300 at Thermopylae bought time, the 40,000 at Plataea bought the future. There is an ancient Spartan saying, "Spartans do not ask how many enemies there are, only where they are." Plataea proved this was not bravado. It was tactical doctrine. The Greeks did not win because they were braver. They won because they were better, better trained, better disciplined, better equipped for the kind of close-quarters infantry warfare that decided ancient battles. But beneath the tactics lies a deeper truth. Plataea was about identity. The Persians fought for empire, for plunder, for the glory of a distant king. The Greeks fought for their homes, their families, their freedom, and yes, for vengeance. Not the wild, chaotic vengeance of emotion, but the cold, calculated vengeance of a people who had made a collective decision. This will not stand. This will be answered. We romanticize the 300 at Thermopylae because martyrdom is beautiful in its simplicity. But Plataea is the harder story. It's the story of what comes after martyrdom. It's about the survivors who carried the weight of the dead and turned grief into purpose. Pausanias did not cry for his uncle. He sharpened his spear. The Spartans did not write poems about Leonidas. They marched north with 10,000 men and fulfilled the promise that no last stand makes alone. We will finish what you started. History tells us that revenge is empty, that violence begets violence, that the moral path is forgiveness. Plataea suggests something more complicated, that there are moments when a civilization must draw a line and say, cross this, and we will destroy you, not in rage, not in chaos, but with the precision of a phalanx, where every man does his part, and the machine of war grinds forward until justice, however bloody, is done. The Persians desecrated Leonidas. The Greeks answered by annihilating an army. The lesson is not that revenge is virtuous. The lesson is that consequences are real, that some acts create debts that will be paid, whether in gold, land, or rivers of blood. Plataea teaches us that discipline defeats numbers, that geography is destiny, that leadership matters. Lose your commander, lose your army. But more than that, it teaches us that freedom is not free. It is bought again and again by people willing to stand in a phalanx, shields locked, facing impossible odds and refusing to break. The 300 became legend because they held the line. The 10,000 became history because they avenged it. Today, the battlefield at Plataea is quiet farmland. Visitors can walk the hills where the Greeks camped, trace the path of the Esopus River, stand where the phalanx shattered the immortals. There's a monument, simple, understated, as Spartans are preferred. On it are carved the names of the Greek dead, city by city, rank by rank. In Sparta, no monuments were needed. The city itself was the monument. Its warriors the living memory of what happened when you dishonored their king. For 40 years after Plataea, Sparta stood as the undisputed military power of Greece. Their reputation, forged at Thermopylae and proven at Plataea, made war unnecessary. Cities surrendered at the sight of crimson cloaks. But empires fade. Sparta would fall, eventually, to its own rigidity and the changing tides of history. Athens would burn. Persia would crumble under Alexander the Great's Macedonian phalanx. The weapon the Greeks perfected on fields like Plataea. All things end, except the story. The story remains. The story of 10,000 Spartans and 30,000 Greeks who marched north with vengeance in their hearts and discipline in their ranks and taught the largest empire on earth a lesson it never forgot. Do not dishonor the dead, because the living will come for you. Plataea was not just a battle. It was a reckoning. It was proof that freedom, defended with skill and fury, cannot be conquered, that some debts transcend gold, that the oath sworn by warriors in the shadow of impossible sacrifice will be kept, no matter the cost. If you enjoyed this deep dive into how the Greeks avenged the 300 and changed the course of Western civilization, please help us win our own battle against the algorithm by hitting that like button and subscribing. It really does make a difference. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you had been a Greek soldier at Plataea, would you have shown mercy to the Persians? Or was total annihilation the only just response? I read every comment. Thanks for watching, and check out the video on your screen now to see how another impossible victory changed history forever. Until next time, keep questioning the official story.